My God, in American politics, there are so many things that we are not good at, but there is one thing that we are good at, and that is disagreeing with one another. We disagree about guns. We disagree about abortion. We disagree about a million things. But I think I found an issue that we can agree on, and that's inflation. Uh, a recent Wall Street Journal story that I read said that inflation increased by 5% in the last month, and that is the most that it's increased by in a single month. Stopping here real quick to make a necessary note, I said that this was an increase from last month. What I actually meant is that this is an increase from this month last year, and that is typically how this is measured. So they would say that the prices rose 5% from what they were last May. So it's measured on a month-by-month compared to last year basis. It can come from the government printing money, or it can come from central banks lowering interest rates, artificially buying up shares of companies and their bonds, which increases the amount of investment that people do in risky securities, which does what they call heating up the economy. It encourages people to invest money in places where they otherwise would not invest the money. And this can be good in times of recession, such as the coronavirus pandemic. But if you're not careful and you add too much gas to the fire, you can overheat things, and that's what we've seen now. We've seen prices increasing dramatically. Now, you might think inflation is always bad, and that's not the case. Small levels of inflation are good. In fact, deflation is terrible. If you think about it, if you want to buy something that costs $100 now, but it's going to cost $90 next week, you have no incentive to buy it now. And if that applies across everything in the whole economy, nobody has any incentive to spend any money or invest any money, which means that the whole economy comes to a grinding halt. And while this might be necessary in some scenarios to connect for economic problems, it is certainly something that cannot be sustained for a long period of time. Now, a small level of inflation, they typically aim for around 2%, is a good thing, and they aim for that annually, by the way, not monthly, is a good thing. Why is that a good thing? Because that means that businesses can continually charge a little bit more for their products, and people always have an incentive to spend their money because if it sits in the bank account, it's going to lose value. This is what drives the economy forward. And as long as people's wages roughly keep up with the rate of inflation, then things are hunky-dory because people's living standards roughly match up with the level of inflation. Now, that's not been the case, but that's a whole different story. And in fact, that actually compounds the problem that we're having right now. So the problem is inflation is really outstripping people's growth in wages right now in particular. Your wages haven't went up 5% in the last month. But inflation has. If you go to buy gas, if you go to buy food, if you have to buy a used car in the last month like I did, you're going to pay through the nose for all of that stuff. And that's terrible because if you're somebody who was just barely making it by on the salary that you were getting paid last year, well, everything that you have to buy between food or diapers for your kid all cost more. So you might be going underwater now. And if you're somebody who's really wealthy, this is certainly going to hurt. But it's not going to present the same danger to your ability to pay your basic bills that it does to somebody on the lower end of the income spectrum. And that's really the Democrat angle against inflation. It hurts people who are on the lower end of the income spectrum a heck of a lot more than it hurts people on the upper end of the income spectrum. And Republicans, of course, should be mad about this because it allows the government to pay for things. Basically, they can just say, oh, this money that we need to do, I don't know, maybe our infrastructure plan that we want to do that didn't exist. Well, we're not going to tax it from people. We're not going to add it to the national debt. No, we'll just say that that money exists now. And the problem with doing that is that everybody's money that they then had is now worth a little bit less. And if you do that too many times, money becomes completely worthless. Now, I'm not saying that that's what we're going towards, but that's the logical extreme if you take this progression too far. And so I think that we need to recognize in the issue of inflation, the left and the right have a common cause. The left should not want to disparately impact those on the lower end of the income spectrum, and the right should ardently oppose any taxes which were not authorized through duly elected representatives of the people. And they certainly should not stand for duplicitous, misunderstood ways of raising capital for government projects that most people don't even know are impacting their standard of living and their quality of life. So on inflation, let's try to work together to oppose that.